Good evening. I'm Maya Laura, and this is the Rockbridge Report. With me today is the Democratic candidate for the 24th District in the Virginia House of Delegates, Christian Worth. How are you today, Christian?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me here as a guest.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. So my first question is, what are your strongest qualifications for this job?
My professional career has been as a lawyer, and in that work I represented people mainly going through the toughest times of their lives, focusing primarily on family law. So in almost 24 years of work as a lawyer, I've represented men, women, been appointed to represent children, and have had to problem solve all kinds of issues. It really just depended on what the client brought to me. So really at the heart of it, what I love and what I'm passionate about is being an advocate.
Great. Well, you were an advocate, but you've never done politics before. So why do you think you're ready to jump into the House of Delegates?
When our family came here in 2016, I actually followed my daughter into politics when she volunteered as a fellow. And I became involved. I was Get Out the Vote captain, and I've been involved in all the campaigns since then. So part of what I did in that work was reaching out to voters, going and knocking on doors throughout the county, in the city, and in other counties to help other candidates. And in the course of doing that, I spoke to so many people, and I heard what issues keep them up at night. And really what I want to do is run to go to Richmond and help people with those issues and solve those problems.
Great. Well, speaking of Get Out the Vote, single race ballots don't often turn up a lot of voters. So how is your campaign focused on getting out the vote, and how have you collaborated with local Democratic groups?
That's an excellent question. We have such a compressed time frame given that the election is now fewer than 2 weeks away. So really our entire campaign is a Get Out the Vote effort. So we are coordinating with the local Democratic committees in Augusta, Amherst, Bath, Buena Vista, and Rockbridge, of course, in Lexington. And Lexington and Rockbridge already work closely in partnership, and so I volunteered with them very closely on all campaigns. So what we're having is an outpouring of support, volunteers who are still energized from the last general election and are very encouraged by the results of that. So yes, it's been very much a team effort, and I've been very grateful that even after the general election, people are stepping up and working hard.
Great. Well, Ben Cline, as I'm sure you know, a Republican, served in the Virginia House of Delegates for 8 terms before moving on to the 6th district in Congress. So what is your plan to compete against the Republican coalition he has built over the years in the 24th district? And do you think a Democrat has a chance of swaying voters in a district that has been red for so long?
You know, I've been tracking the results of the last few elections just in my work with the local Democrats. And I think what we're seeing is people want to see a change. They want to see a delegate who will be focused on their needs, on the needs of these communities here specifically in the district. And if you look at the results of the most recent election and how Jennifer Lewis performed, then I'm actually greatly encouraged by that. I think that we're building on that, and I am very optimistic about the outcome of this election.
Right. So speaking of Jennifer Lewis, she did really well in Lexington, but she did lose by quite a large margin to Ben Cline. So how are you going to convince some of the more conservative counties to give you the votes they weren't willing to give to Jennifer Lewis?
Well, I think we also have to look at the fact that she was running overall in a 6th congressional district, which of course covers far more territory than our 24th district. Part of how I am working to get the message out is really spending as much time as I can out in these communities. I'll be going to Bath this week. I'll be in Augusta over the weekend. I have plans to be in Amherst. I've actually walked doors in BV last night. So really I think it's about being able to target my platform and what issues are important to the specific needs of these districts, whereas Jennifer had to cover a much larger area.
Great. So transitioning to if you were to win when you got to the House of Delegates, what would be the first issue you would want to tackle, and what is your plan of attack on that issue?
Well, I think that the first issue that I'd want to tackle is the issue of expanding broadband into our rural areas. There are so many issues I care about, so honestly it's like picking your favorite child. It is hard because so many are so important and so vital. But I think what we're seeing is some bipartisan support. Definitely it's a priority for the legislature in this upcoming session. But I think that a lot of the things that we need to work on here really, it's almost like broadband is the linchpin to the solutions to some of our other problems. And I'd also say, obviously, I-81 is a big issue. But again, it's hard to pick just one.
Yeah, so sort of going off broadband just for a second, you say on your website, in your issues platform, that you consider broadband a social justice issue. I would love for you to expand on your reasoning for that.
Well, I can't actually take credit for that phrase. That phrase came from a technician that I met months ago who just happened to say, as we were working on an issue I had at my home, that he said, you know, it's really hurting our folks here in this area, that he felt it was a social justice issue. And really that's because broadband anymore these days, it's not a luxury. It really is a utility. It's how we communicate with the world. It's how we can watch streaming football games. It's how you can have your child do the research he or she needs to do to complete a school project. And it's how you can look up the answers to questions that you have. Maybe you're trying to find a local business or someone to come and help you with a project at your house. So it's so much more than I think it was when we all first heard about this amazing thing called the internet.
Great. And sort of still on issues, but moving away just purely out of the 24th district, what is the biggest issue facing the House of Delegates overall, and how will your presence lead to a solution?
The biggest issue facing the House of Delegates overall is that without a balance of power, which is what a win for a Democrat in this district would achieve, it's going to be hard to get things done. It took 4 years to expand Medicaid, and that was only because some Republican delegates finally understood, were willing to stand up for something that would actually help the folks in their district. And I commend that. So I think that if we are going to get things done, having a 50-50 balance of power will really require us all to listen to each other, be open to solutions, and really create bipartisan solutions.
Fantastic. What is an issue on which you and the Virginia Democratic Party do not see eye to eye, and how would you stand up to your party leaders in the House of Delegates on that particular issue?
Well, I would say this. I think that the Democrats here are amazing and wonderful, and I'm going to brag just for a minute. Our Lexrock Democratic volunteers managed to set records with the Get Out the Vote efforts in this most recent general election. So where I don't see eye to eye with the Democratic Party is that we need the support of the Democratic Party here. And I will tell you, they are listening, and we are getting more attention and more support, and even with this campaign, and I'm very grateful for that. But I just think that we are far more strong as a force here than we're given credit for.
Great. You and your opponent are both from the Rockbridge area, so that's pretty interesting. How do you think that has or will impact the race and the main issues both of you are talking about on your platforms?
Well, I think on my end, I certainly can't speak for my opponent, but on my end, what it really means is that it's very, very important that I'm out and visible in these communities throughout the district. And with the short amount of time we have, you can understand that it has been challenging. That's why I'm grateful, for example, that Jennifer Lewis was out canvassing for me just this past weekend. And so what I have to rely on is that my friends and community members who know me, who know how hard I've worked for the community with different organizations, are out there just talking to their friends, just getting the word out. So for me, it's a matter of prioritizing, and that really will be next week, getting out into every county in as many precincts as I can, meeting as many voters as I can. And I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So something I was interested in when I was reading through your platform is that your stance on gun control is actually a little bit different from what I think has been Democratic calls on the national platform for major gun reform. So I would love if you could explain that issue and how you came to your current stance on that.
Okay. Well, I imagine then that means you read my answers in the Advocate, right? So the question that was actually asked is, what is a major issue on which you've changed your mind? And the reason I answered the way I did is because it is important to show that you're open to change and open to learning. And as I said in that answer, I grew up in a household without guns. But when a friend of mine finally said, hey, if we're going to talk about this, you need to go to the range. And she took me to the range, and she couldn't have been more kind. And what I learned is that really it is about safety and responsible gun ownership, and that we have to remember and appreciate the responsible gun owners out there. My father-in-law has taught our children how to shoot and taking them out in the county, and they love that time with him. They've gone out hunting. So what I think we have to do is have responsible gun owners be part of the solution. So I don't have all the answers, because I also know that with children who are in school and college, we want our kids to be safe. And it is a shame that children worry about things like shootings. But I'm very open to solutions that would be respectful of the responsible gun owners out there, who I know completely agree that what we need to prevent is access to guns by those who would hurt themselves or others.
Great. And so my last question for you here is, we touched a little bit on your lack of political experience and how you got to this point. But why should voters vote for you over somebody who has served in local government on the Board of Supervisors? What is your greatest appeal for voters?
Well, I think the experience that I have had as a wife, as a mother, as a family lawyer, as a volunteer in the community has given me such a wide range of appreciation, not just for the issues that are actually facing folks who live here in this district, but also an appreciation for the need to find solutions that fit the communities that we live in. And so I take the word representative very, very seriously. And because that is my professional life, then I know that's going to translate into being an effective voice in Richmond, not just for the people in the city of Lexington, not just for the people in the county of Rockbridge, but throughout our entire district.
Great. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today.
It's been fun.
But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Maya Laura, and this is the Rockbridge Report.